Tagmarshal technology, we coined the wording golf course intelligence. We use GPS and IoT and data analytics to optimize on-course operations. We work with about 300 clubs at this point. There's your 30 of the top 100, including your Kiowa, Earnhills, Pinehurst, Bandit, Dunes, Whistling Straits, and what have you, but also good private clubs, Westchester, Valhalla, Castle Pines. Some of the best, but also 250 or middle of the road clubs, and that's important because that's where most of the golf gets played. We've tracked 10 million rounds of golf at this stage, and we're a data company, so we can learn a lot from about 1 billion data points. And obviously, our customers also seeing that some of them are the best in the game. They're always pushing us for better, and they're pushing us for more, and we learn from them because we're a technology business. We're not operators. So we keep our ears very closely to the ground so that we can give them the optimal solutions. And one of the things that I found that I saw recently was a very fun meme. Who drove your organization's digital transformation? CEO, CTO, or COVID-19? And I think that goes in line with what David was saying earlier, that a lot of clubs are now making that jump. Also consumers are making that jump to adjust their behavior sooner than they would have because they're being forced to. I think we need to maybe also just take a step back and look at how are we responding to this crisis, and there's certain sort of crisis response mechanisms that we have as humans, and it's the same whether our house is on fire or there's a saber-toothed tiger outside our cave or it's a pandemic like this. So the first one is fear and uncertainty, the second one is mitigation, and then the third step is how can we make this work and adapt so we can be successful into the future. And I think you're all familiar with this adoption curve that I've put on here. It is exactly the same in the crisis response adoption. So there will be clubs, there will be operators that are saying there's absolutely no way that we can make any changes. We have to hold on to what we have. And there's others that are saying, well, we can't do it the way we used to. We have to actually make changes now. This is an opportunity because everybody is already in change mode. And the clubs really need to find out who they are in this space. And there's no wrong or right. And obviously the future will decide that. But we've always found that it depends on who you talk to and how ready they are as individuals, but also as organizations to make changes like this. So what I would like to do is just quickly share a few stats. There's already been some phenomenal stats being shared this evening. And we had a webinar last week on Thursday, so it's really fresh, 3-4 days old, with Pinehurst, Eastlake, and Meisner Country Club. And some of the points that came out of that were also 150 people, a sample of 150 is not necessarily representative, but what was interesting was that 90% of them were closed right now for play, but still 43% felt very positive that they'll see more play because golf is in a great position, thankfully. And you can see that up here, all the usual pastimes, gym, football, tennis, basketball, swimming, even watching it is off the table right now. Golf, you can play social distance. Running, you can do cycling, but the moment you add competition to running and cycling, that's when you start touching people. That's when it becomes more difficult. So golf is really in a unique position. And then there were another 37% that were somewhat positive, and only 20% were uncertain. And I don't blame them because right now the club is closed and they can't play it. There's also many European clubs and Canadian clubs. But not a single person thought golf was in trouble. So this is really positive. What's also good to see is that open golf courses and safe outdoor activity has had a huge Google search spike. So people are looking for that opportunity, are looking to get out. Like somebody joked earlier, it's all nice being pent up with your wife and kids, but if you can get out there and have meet up with some friends, that gives you a level of sanity, and obviously there's not much else on. So what a lot of the operators are actually saying is there's lots of clubs driving more play than they would. That was also mentioned earlier, above average play here, that's the NGF data, 32% of clubs, and a lot of them attribute that to coronavirus. So there's opportunity in this, there's opportunity for golf, and we're really in a good position. So what I would like to do quickly is just look at 6 data pilot steps that our partners use to attract and retain golfers. So the first one, and that's something that Peter from Blaze first mentioned, is communication. You want to now provide the safest possible environment, and you need to define and overshare and repeat what your safe golf rules and processes are internally and externally, so that your own team knows exactly what's going on. They can communicate well with the people coming through the gate, and you do it externally, because that is what attracts players right now. That experience is really what people are looking for at this point. So what our team has done, because we've got all these customers in various locations, including Europe, that were ahead of the curve in their response to this pandemic, we've looked at what are the best practices, and much like Chronogolf have done, we've also put up what we call a safe golf platform. So we've literally put it together. Here are the top 10 points, that's what you can do, and this is also what you can communicate. So it's really a drop and go when it comes to your social media, your club communications, and also how players need to behave. Because why do we need to make all those experiments ourselves? We can learn from others and we can learn from the best. And another thing that we did is because the clubhouses are off limits right now, check-in processes have changed. Well, communicate that. The moment people feel secure, and it's great that Chronogolf, for instance, are doing this on check-in, that you know these are the steps that we need to take. Well, because we're mapping out all these clubs, we thought, isn't it great if we can just visualize it for them so they can share it and they can put it on their website and everybody can see this is where I go. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Because the moment I feel secure as a player, I feel safe, that's a space I want to be in.
Yeah, that's really powerful there. I mean, communication and the way you communicate is that's pretty slick there.
Thanks, Rick. So the point 2 is track all play. So that is something that's very important when it comes to walkers, because a lot of clubs are offering walking golf. Well, if I don't know where people are, how can I control that? How can I control and provide a safe space for them? Single riders, carts, so that is your golf boards, your single riders, the novelties that we were spoken about earlier. Anything can be tracked, and really using technology to manage that social distancing. Last year, pace of play, flow of play was the biggest topic in the game, and this year it's the same, because social distancing, that's what it is in practice. You want to provide a safe space, you want to provide a space where playing groups keeping their distance, there's no congregation, there's no bunch-ups, and we need to do that proactively and accurately. So that's where technology really helps, and if you have the best algorithms to really determine this is a problem group, this is where you need to intervene, or this is where you need to send a message, that really helps making sure people are aware of this. And it's really game-changing, where last year it was a case of we used to teach people not to go up to a player and say, hey guys, you're slow, speed it up. Well, don't do that. Players don't want to be called slow. Say you're out of position. And this year, all you have to do is say, guys, you're a bit out of position. We all want this course to be open, and we want you guys to be safe. So this is what I would like you to do, get back into position so we can keep our distance. So very easy, and that's what the clubs have been doing. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is, are we doing this well enough right now? Like, because there's different variables out on the course. There's single riders, there's walkers. It's maybe different to what we're used to. And I think we need to be very mindful that without real data and real oversight, it's very difficult to actually control that. So here's an example. You've got 3,000 rounds played in March at an Arizona club down the road from you, Tim, in the Wild West. And they're playing to a 4-hour goal time. The average round time is coming in at 4:06. And you would say, hey guys, you're doing this really well. But the reality is that 27% of these groups were on pace or faster. And obviously that's where your twosomes are really speeding ahead. Your early rounds speeding ahead. But the rest of the day, your 73% out of position is slow. And if you break this down further, if you look into the data, there's 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes over. And that is where congregation happens. And that is where people are bunching up. And that is when you get those phone calls. I'm not feeling safe on the course right now because there's 4 groups backed up on the 14th hole. And this is where technology can really help, making sure that we control that well. And one of the things that was mentioned earlier, well, should we not just space out intervals? Well, that is something that hurts you very quickly because you're giving away so much capacity. So it is much, much cheaper to invest in technology than it is to give away capacity. So the 4th point is to use actionable data to manage your course performance, so that you really understand what are the setups that work, how do our holes perform, where are the bottlenecks and flow risks, what are the intervals that work, maybe they need to be dynamic, what are the goal times that work, maybe those need to be dynamic. Some of our customers like Pebble Beach or Kewa, they're running dynamic goal times where you start the day at 50 minutes faster than you end the day. And if you pull the day along, you're really stretching out your field and making sure that you're getting a really good result when it comes to that distancing that you're looking to provide. Starter accuracy. is more important than ever, because what you want to do is for people to adhere to those intervals and not bunch and not cause issues by going off a bit earlier, a bit late. And most importantly, staff efficiencies. We have to do more with less now. You mentioned it earlier. If you've got 3 or 4 or 5 people managing an operation that used to have 25 or 30 or 50, you can only do that if you have oversight and technology like you might get from Eizon or ourselves. And lastly, collect data to benchmark and keep improving, because how do we know if we're doing well if we're not benchmarking, if we're not tracking our performance? And that is something that Peter as well from Players First mentioned. We have to have that improvement mindset and keep looking for better and keep looking for what are the next variables that we can tackle. And lastly, it stops again with communication. So if you're doing this well, you need to share those results, you need to share those processes and those successes, because that is what your players then communicate to others. And we were talking about the Net Promoter Score earlier. The Net Promoter Score meaning I would recommend this club and would recommend you become a member here, or would recommend you play your rounds here. If we are doing this well, and if we can show that there's results that are keeping people safe, and there's results that are making sure that the players have the experience that they're coming for, they will communicate that and they will become resellers on your behalf. So that is really a retention strategy and a loyalty strategy second to none. And an example here is what technology can really do. And year one flow results of a single month where everything is red and bad and 40-50 minutes over the same month, the same traffic 1 year later, everything's balanced and green. And that is where you're really giving people time, and also you're making sure that everything's stretched out and there's social distance. Also, we have to be mindful, what are the opportunities for more people working remotely, like David is doing really well up in Canada. And maybe we have more flexibility now to play a quick round, right? Because we're not in traffic for 2 hours a day. So an opportunity that a lot of our partners are chasing here is to really single out fast lane rounds where you can do your standard goal time an hour faster, and you start your day with the first 5-6 rounds quicker, and you can say, I can guarantee you a 3 hour 20 round at this course that will make sure that you can get to your next Zoom call on time. And a lot of people say, well, I'll jump on that. That's fantastic, because normally I don't know what I'm going to get. If it takes 5 hours, I have to say no. So this is an opportunity, and it really becomes an optimization opportunity, one from a savings and staff savings point, an hour savings point of view, but also from how can we have use what we have and get more out of that asset. So I hope that that was helpful, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to jump and try and answer those.
Great, thanks, Bodo. So I'm going to open up a few questions of my own to the group in general. One of the biggest things, is as we come out of post-COVID, we'll call it, things will be, still in cost control mode, I'd assume. And owners and boards will be a little bit more hesitant to invest in new technologies. Can you guys kind of go around the table and describe how either your platform or technology in general can provide some sort of ROI, through cost avoidance, cost replacement, or adding different revenue streams?
Sure, I'll start.
Go ahead, Tim.
No, so first off, I put on a shirt because Rick and Tim looked so dapper, and I felt so out of place. But so I think if we go back, it's a great question. I think if we go back about a year and a half, 2 years ago, the big buzzword in golf was loyalty, and everybody's messaging was, if email marketing is your only marketing strategy, then you're going to be left behind. So we started seeing golf courses adapt to introducing more sophisticated and comprehensive loyalty programs as a great retention tool and a way to encourage spending. And if I were to try to find some parallels with adopting new technology now, I kind of think of the whole loyalty era when that was the big buzzword, and before that it was dynamic pricing, and we were able to actually see some positive yields from that. So if we look at restaurants and opening up delivery channel or just online ordering, you're definitely going to see a return on that investment, and more importantly, you might attract a new audience. And I think a new audience is what golf needs right now. So that's my 2 cents on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
I was going to say, maybe not anything from our technology, but it's the communication of the technology. A lot of the things we talked about this morning, it's that Top Golf crowd that can't go to Top Golf, and now they're coming. I think, Rick, hats off to you and Troon. I mean, you guys are doing so many initiatives in Strauss to really make sure the world knows what's available when you get here, how you bring your family, as David said, how we make it safe. Some are, as I said earlier, some are hypersensitive to touching the flagstick, and some are, it's just normal day-to-day business. So how do you blend everybody? And I think a lot of the clubs that we saw, I was at a public golf course yesterday, they're doing it right at the bag stand. Here's how we're handling this. Here's what we expect of you today. We'd love to have you support us because we want to keep golf open. And as Rock said in this morning's session, that's so critical. The states that have golf open, it's a privilege. And I think we have to step back and say, as technology providers, are we doing what we can behind the scenes subtly just to make that process simpler? And that's really what we should focus on.
Bodo, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks. From a ROI point of view, so for us, the directive is very clear that it's a savings opportunity because you can do more with less. And we know, and from the conversation that we've had also recently, is that that's more important now than ever because there's less resources, also less touch points are recommended. So you can't necessarily put as many people out there as you normally would in terms of staff. And doing more with less also plays into a program that we've put together, that we've got a 6 months no payment to get started, because we do realize that clubs are under pressure right now. So that is something that we've put together with our finance partner, and that has been tremendously well received. And funny enough, for us, that might become a new normal. And why would we not also change alongside this? And then secondly, revenue maximization. Because you need to get the most out of what you're already doing and not leave anything on the table. So this is where really optimizing your course in terms of all those variables that drive additional revenue out there. Anything that drives screen fees, anything that drives capacity when it matters. It may not be every day of the week, but it might be 2 or 3 days of the week. Or it might be certain pockets of days of the week that you can really design the space with optimal staffing, optimal setups, optimal variables to really get the most out of it. And that's where also it pays to really have strong partnerships like with our integration partners, like for instance Chronogolf, Easy Links, 40s, Club Essentials. You're literally plugging into existing environments, so it's not a big and heavy learning curve for people. It's a plug and play, and off you go, and you get immediate benefit.
We'll stick with you here on this question, Bodo. So as we, again, we're looking post-COVID here, where do you think technology companies, specifically within the golf industry, should concentrate on as far as innovation to help attract new golfers or retain the casual golfer, specifically kind of the younger group, we'll call them millennials. Just kind of what are your thoughts on that, on where should the golf industry from a technology side concentrate on?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm from what we're learning is that there's a real opportunity for golf to have a surge in play right now because there's so little alternatives. So that a non-committed player might actually play more. Also, Topgolf that 2018 did 18 million rounds is closed right now. Hopefully not for long, but there's opportunity getting people out on the course. Like we said earlier, we need to also look at if our prospective customers and members are working remotely and they have less commute, they're made more flexible, that we need to be flexible as operators. We need to be flexible and say, okay, I can fit you in for a 3-hour full 18, for instance, and we can customize our experience a bit more. And also that is worth something to people, so that we can, it's a case of, I've got a certain amount of time available and on a certain day a week, when can you fit me in so I can make that happen with my adjusted, more flexible lifestyle? And that's where keeping things a bit more dynamic and flexible, but still having the control and understanding what you're doing is really helpful. And also, funny enough, that's exactly what the under 40s are after, because you can't always control your family life and so on. And if you do get a chance to go out, there needs to be control in terms of you need to know what you're going to get. And right now, that means I want to save space, and I want to know that there's consistency in if I'm if I'm trusting a club to look after me, one from a safety point of view, but also from how much time do I have to